The last word of this question is underlined twice for extra
great.
emphasis.
Okay. Yeah, it's got to be serious.
How is the divinity of Christ proven?
Well, the divinity, look, Paul tells us that, right? You want to know what the most important piece of evidence in all of Scripture is related to Jesus' divinity? Paul's going to tell you. It's in 1 Corinthians 15. The one piece of evidence that if we're been lied to about, we're to be pitied. What is that? That's the resurrection. Now, I could have done a talk on the resurrection. I do a whole other talk on why I think that using abductive reasoning, the resurrection, as we see it as Christians, is the most reasonable inference from evidence. But for me, that was huge. If the resurrection is not true, and that is without a doubt the best piece of evidence for the deity of Christ. Now, did he claim to be God? Yeah, he claimed to be God. That's pretty clear. But who cares? Lots of knuckleheads claim to be God. Doesn't mean they're God. Did he rise from the dead? If that happened, that's a game changer. Now, here's the other thing. If you're in this room right now and you just don't think that those kinds of things could happen, I am not going to change your mind. But I want you to think about this for a second. If the investigation you're starting is an investigation to see whether or not the supernatural is reasonable, to see whether or not the supernatural things actually happen, if that's the thing you're investigating, you can't start that investigation with a bias against the supernatural. Do you know what I mean? I remember I talked about this in the book. I had a case where we get to this crime scene, and there's a lady who's dead on the bed. She's half dressed, and my senior partner, who's 15 years senior to me, says, this is going to be a boyfriend-girlfriend murder. Look at her. Look on her nightstand. You got a picture of him with her with some guy. Who's that guy? Look at her closet. Her closet's half empty. All the girls' clothes are packed in, and this side is empty. It's got one men's jacket. What woman has a closet that's half empty? Think about it. You find the guy whose clothes are missing, who's in that picture, that's going to be our killer. We wasted a week looking for her boyfriend when she had no boyfriend. None. That was her brother. She was Korean. It was New Christmas Eve. He went back to Korea, took his clothes and left. She was killed that night when she was by herself after he left. No boyfriend. She was 56 when she died. Now, because we had a faulty assumption, a presupposition, we decided before we started looking what our conclusion was. We decided we're looking for a boyfriend. If you think that up front, you'll spend a lot of time wasting your time. If you decide up front that naturalism is true, that no supernatural events could ever occur, well, trust me, you'll end up there because you started there. You have to suspend your disbelief and put it on the shelf for just a minute to see if this is the most reasonable inference from evidence if I didn't first hold a bias against the supernatural. And then if everything else works for you except that it is supernatural, start to examine whether or not your bias is what's keeping you from that conclusion. That make sense? All right.